Occasionally in the Arctic, the sun can appear square when it's on the horizon. In 1993, Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's, went back to high school to earn his GED decades after dropping out because he was worried kids may see his success as an excuse to also drop out of school. In 1976, a Greek war veteran named Stamatis Moraitis was diagnosed with cancer and told he only had 6 months to live. He went back to the doctors 10 years later to tell them he was still alive, only to discover that all of the doctors who had diagnosed him were dead. He lived to be 102 years old. Each sperm contains about 3 billion bases of genetic information, representing 750 megabytes of digital information. Marshmallows exist because of sore throats. For centuries, juice from the marshmallow plant has been used for pain relief. In the 1800s, it was mixed with egg whites and sugar for children with sore throats, and the recipe was so tasty that people turned it into a treat called marshmallow. The fear of being away from your phone is called nomophobia. Crocodiles cannot stick out their tongues or chew. In 2011, a man named Richard James Varon robbed a bank for $1 so that he could be sent to jail to receive free medical health care. The Centennial light bulb in Livermore, California has been burning since 1901 and is the world's longest-lasting light bulb. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, the bulb is at least 113 years old and has only been turned off a handful of times. The first country where a woman was allowed to vote was New Zealand in 1893. There are now snuggery services where you can hire someone to snuggle with you for $60 per hour. The entire Pixar staff had to take a graduate class in fish biology before making Finding Nemo. Bubble wrap was originally invented in 1957 to be sold as wallpaper. Honey badgers have been known to eat porcupines and poisonous snakes, raid beehives for honey, kidnap baby cheetahs, and steal food from hungry lions. Cuba has the highest doctor-to-patient ratio in the world. Almost is the longest English word in alphabetical order. Geographically, China covers 5 different time zones, however only uses one standard time zone within the country. A quarter of the world's hazelnuts each year go towards making Nutella. That's 100,000 tons of hazelnuts per year. There's an infrared device that exists that detects the locations of medical patients' veins and projects them onto the skin. Actor Don Johnson once asked famed journalist Hunter S. Thompson, "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" Hunter S. Thompson answered by reaching up and slapping Johnson upside the head. On July 5, 1996, the first mammal ever was successfully cloned. Dolly the sheep was cloned from an adult cell at the Roslin Institute in Scotland. She was named after Dolly Parton because she was cloned from a mammary cell. Economics professors at Emory University found that those who spend below average on their weddings and on their wedding rings have lower divorce rates. There is a one-hole golf course just meters south of the Korean DMs, which is surrounded on 3 sides by minefields. There are reports that at least one shot exploded a landmine. A fur trapper named Ben Cockrum was attacked by wolves in 1922. After shooting 7 wolves and beating 4 to death with his gun, the stalk broke and he succumbed to being torn to shreds. His body was found surrounded by the remains of the 11 wolves he had killed fighting for his life. Helsinki, Finland has an annual celebration called Dinner Under the Sky, where all Helsinkians can set up a table outside and enjoy their dinner on the city's sidewalks, parks, or even in the middle of the busiest shopping streets. Robin Williams improvised the last line in Good Will Hunting, as well as the scene where he talks about his wife farting in bed. That's why Matt Damon was laughing so hard. The programming language Python is named after Monty Python. The artificial sweetener sucralose Splenda was discovered when a researcher misheard a command to test this chemical as taste this chemical. The average infantryman in the South Pacific during World War II saw about 8 days of combat in a year. The average infantryman in Vietnam saw about 240 days of combat in 1 year. The character Kenny on South Park is based on a real childhood friend of Trey Parker, who is named Kenny, was the poorest kid in town, wore a large parka that muffled his voice and would frequently skip school, inspiring the running joke that he died by classmates. When the African gray parrot Nikisi first met Jane Goodall, he recognized her from a photograph and asked, "Got a chimp?" It is claimed that this was a possible display of a sense of humor. SS Judge Georg Konrad Morgan investigated corruption and murder in Nazi concentration camps. He investigated more than 800 people for criminal activity in the camps over a period of 2 years. He prosecuted so many people that Heinrich Himmler had to directly order him to stop. The inventor of the television didn't let his own children watch TV. He once said to his son, "There's nothing on it worthwhile, and we're not going to watch it in this household, and I don't want it in your intellectual diet." Philo T. Farnsworth. James D. French was an American murderer who was put to death in 1966 by the electric chair. His last words were, "How's this for your headline? French fries." There is a large stinging shrub native to Australia called the gympie gympie that produces a neurotoxin so painful it has driven people and animals to suicide. The pain has been described as being sprayed with hot acid and electrocuted at the same time. A man was reported to have shot himself after using the tree as toilet paper. In the early 1900s, lots of German kids used to die from diarrhea until a doctor named Ernst Morrow invented carrot stew, which saved thousands of lives. In 2009, experiments showed that Professor Morrow's carrot soup could cure diarrhea caused by bacteria which are resistant to antibiotics. The first Native American who met the Pilgrims at Plymouth Colony walked into their encampment and greeted them in English. NFL moved the 1993 Super Bowl from Arizona after residents there voted against recognizing Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Due to changes in local gravity, a pendulum clock accurate at sea level will lose around 16 seconds per day if moved to an altitude of 4,000 feet. eBay once tried changing their background from yellow to white, but received complaints, so they reverted it back to yellow, then gradually changed it to white over several months. Nobody complained. During the Spanish-American War 1898, a warship was sent by the USA to capture Guam. It fired 13 shots at the harbor fort without receiving return fire. The Spanish sent an officer out to apologize for not returning the salute as they were out of gunpowder. They hadn't been informed that they were at war. In 2000, Pope John Paul II gave his blessing to the Pokémon franchise, saying the games did not have any harmful moral side effects and were based on ties of intense friendship. The Huns had no writing system, and thus all records of them were written by their enemies who universally described them as nearly monstrous in appearance, speech, and behavior. Michael Jordan said the greatest part of playing for the US Olympic team was learning the weaknesses of his teammates for when they returned to the NBA. There are about 300 million neurons in the octopus brain. The Controlled Substances Act of 1970 states that the mandatory penalty for possession of 1 gram of LSD is 5 years in prison. The brain of a goldfish makes up 0.3% of its total body weight. An adult human brain is about 2% of total body weight. About 3% of all people living to the age of 80 will be diagnosed with epilepsy. The giant axon of the squid can be 100 to 1,000 times larger than a mammalian axon. Roman Emperor Elagabalus III century was served 600 ostrich brains at a single meal. The rate of fatal alcohol-related motor vehicle crashes among drivers between 16 and 20 years old who use alcohol is more than twice the rate for drivers aged 21 years and older. The corpus callosum, the fiber tract that connects the right and left hemispheres of the brain, is approximately 10 centimeters long and 1 centimeter wide. The esophagus goes right through the brain of an octopus. Sailors once believed that smelling the bad breath of whales could cause brain disorders. There are more than 2 million cases of traumatic brain injury (TBI) in the USA each year. Most TBIs are caused by motor vehicle accidents, falls, gunshot wounds, and sports injuries.